Welcome. We are in chapter 17 of Genesis. We're going to continue with verse 15. But last time we were talking about Abraham and the covenant renewal between him and God, which was more about God multiplying the descendants of Abraham. Verse 15 said, "And God said to Abraham, As for Sarai, your wife, you shall not call her name Sarai, but Sarah will be her name," which means princess, which is interesting. It seems that sort of her position, it sort of suggests her position in the covenant, because the head of the covenant was Abraham, and Sarah was his wife, and through them and Isaac, the Messiah, was to come. Verse 16, "And I will bless her, and moreover, I will give you a son by her. I will bless her, and she shall become nations. Kings of people shall come from her." There you go. Then Abraham fell on his face and laughed and said to himself, "Shall a child be born to a man who is 100 years old? Shall Sarah, who is 90 years old, bear a child?" Now, what's interesting here is you don't see God respond. You don't see God questioning why he was laughing. And they reckon it's not because Abraham had little faith. It was more like the extent of his understanding was limited. He couldn't comprehend how God would bring about his plan. Verse 18, "And Abraham said to God, Oh, that Ishmael might live before you. God said, No, but Sarah, your wife, shall bear you a son, and you shall call his name Isaac. I will establish my covenant with him as an everlasting covenant for his offspring after him. As for Ishmael, I have heard you. Behold, I have blessed him, and I will make him fruitful and multiply him greatly. He shall father 12 princes, and I will make him into a great nation. But I will establish my covenant with Isaac, whom Sarah shall bear to you at this time next year." So if you look at the covenant itself, so Ishmael would be protected, but he wasn't going to be the part of the covenant. So the blessing that would eventually bless the whole world, because we would be given the opportunity to escape from death, to escape from a sinful nature, that would come through Isaac. But Ishmael wasn't part of it. Ishmael was also going to be blessed by God, in a sense. He was going to be protected by God, but he wasn't going to be part of the covenant blessing. Verse 22, "When he had finished talking with him, God went up from Abraham. Then Abraham took Ishmael his son, and all those born in his house, or bought with his money, every male among the men of Abraham's house. And he circumcised the flesh of their foreskins that very day, as God had said to him. Abraham was 99 years old when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin, and Ishmael his son was 13 years old when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. That very day Abraham and his son Ishmael were circumcised, and all the men of his house, those born in the house and those bought with money from a foreigner, were circumcised with him." So, as we already discussed, circumcision was the sign of the covenant. So if you think about it, even Ishmael was part of the covenant, but the blessings that would entail blessing the whole world, that he wasn't part of it. But the other interesting thing is Abraham did what the Lord commanded. He didn't try to sort of escape the responsibility of doing this, which is interesting, because if you think about it, I'm pretty sure it was a horrible process, especially for someone as old as Abraham. Your body doesn't heal as quick as a 8-day-old child, and it might have seemed something strange. And I think that's where faith really comes into the picture. That's why faith is really important, because there might be times in your life where something horrible or something that you just can't explain, it doesn't make sense, happens to you. And the question is, how do you react? How do you respond? Do we respond by saying that this doesn't make sense? things should be according to my understanding. Things should be the way I think they should be. Reality should be conformed to my understanding, not the other way around. I shouldn't conform to God. And I think that's when you have problems. If you, and I understand, look, I'm not talking about whatever lets trouble and calamities come. It's not about that, because nobody wants that. Everybody's praying, not for protection for their loved ones. But when tragedy strikes, I've read and I heard from others who have experienced horrible tragedies, that the only way to get through these things, the only way to get through not just tragedies, but horrible things in life, difficulties, when you're stumbling, is rely on God, is to rely on His, and not to rely on your own understanding, because you don't understand anything. You don't understand what God has in store for you, what His plan for you. He might do this to strengthen you. We don't understand, and it's easy to question God. I understand. I read that God understands what you're going through. So whenever you have problems, just say it. Just tell it to God. Tell Him what's bothering you. So He might give you an understanding, or He might ease your burden. But in any case, what we can learn from the Bible, and what I see in the Bible, and what I see when reading stories and talking to people, that as their faith increases, that's when you can see how they draw closer to God, how they are able to not rely on themselves, not try to do things according to their own understanding, but come close to God and let the events unfold as per His design. Because if you think about it, you have prayed a prayer saying, let it be, thy kingdom come, thy will be done, but do you actually mean it? I think I've seen it, and what I experienced is, when people are saying certain things, God will God will try them, and He will make sure that they understand what they are saying. He's going to put them through trial, which will have something to do with their mentality, or how they react to certain things, or how they think about certain things. So He will try us, especially if we are wrong about something, so we can change our minds, so we can have a better understanding. But whenever the trial comes, we have to remember to stay close to Him and pray and try to be, walk with Him. As the beginning, God said to him, walk before me and be blameless. So we have to remember to walk before Him and be blameless. Amen.